So I will do a quick introduction. Hopefully everyone are seeing our lovely faces now instead of the PowerPoint slides. But I'll introduce myself real quick. My name's Garrett Sauls. I'm with InterWorks. I'm a content manager. I've been with InterWorks for almost 13 years. Just talking with data people, getting them to talk about their stuff, making them talk, prodding them to share their smarts with the world. And so that's why we're here today. But I'll pitch it over to Annabelle, my illustrious, experienced enablement colleague, to introduce herself and our guest Ellie.
Hello, a very nice welcome also from my side. My name is Annabelle Rincon. I'm living in Switzerland. I'm passionate about data visualization and enablement. On my previous role, I was leading the Tableau Center of Enablement for like a Swiss bank. So that's why I can say without a doubt that enablement is the key for the success of any data analytic implementation or transformation. And that's why with Garrett, we have decided 6-7 months ago, I don't remember, that it will be a good idea to do this webinar series and learn from the best on the market. And and I'm also leading the Tableau Analytic user group and Data+Women Zurich chapter. And that's why today is a great honor for me to receive Ellie Slater. Ellie is currently the Enablement Manager at John Lewis Partnership in London, where she used her skill to enable her organization to adopt data-driven practice through effective strategy, training, and community engagement. And she will tell us everything about this today. She's also a two-time Tableau ambassador and co-lead a Data+Women London. And she is passionate about fostering inclusive community and sharing her knowledge. Thank you very much, Ellie, for joining us today. And maybe a small question to get you started. Can you explain what an enablement manager does? What are your daily activities?
Yeah, of course. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on Annabelle and Garrett. It's really fun. I've been looking forward to this. So it's nice to actually be here. So an enablement manager is an interesting role and one that I've kind of developed over the last few years. So at the partnership, we've been using Tableau for kind of 3 years now. And day to day, I've been used to be a Tableau enablement manager, and then this year have switched and pivoted to kind of just general data enablement. So as part of that, we set up a brand new team in the beginning of Feb. So my day-to-day job at the moment is working through the strategy of enablement, what we want to achieve across many different work streams, and how that ladders up to our data and insight strategy, and then how that ladders up to our organization strategy as well, and all the various metrics and scorecards that underpin all of that. But we basically have 5 work streams within my enablement team. We have learning, discovery, tooling, communications, and community. So I head up the learning and community, as well as kind of steering the direction for the others as well. So within learning, our biggest thing is to provide a minimum standard of data fluency across every partner, our employees at our organization. So that involves looking at our data fluency programs, helping them with technical skills, so developing the proficiency programs for our platforms like Tableau, Snowflake, and various other tech skills, but also those softer skills, and I don't love that term, but the softer skills around storytelling, presenting, just making sure that everyone at the partnership at John Lewis feels capable and confident in using data and insight to drive their decisions. So part of that is organising what training we're delivering to who. It's developing those materials. And also, I think I often say that the enablement team or the new team is kind of the marketing arm of data and insight at the partnership. And we are working through various different playbooks to help our different departments better advertise their products and their insight to the rest of the business, both in terms of getting our stuff actually used and valued, but also in helping other people use data for their own jobs. And we're working with them to help them with their journeys.
That's awesome. I'm curious, having been at John Lewis Partnership for a little bit, when you started, were some of these structures in place, or how many of these structures did you kind of like, as you progressed through your roles and as you kind of got acclimated, did you kind of help lead? Like, essentially, how did you go from starting at John Lewis Partnership to where you are now, where you have like these designated subgroups and teams that are focused on different things? So what was that like?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and quite a little bit has been like kind of side of desks. So I joined as actually the reporting manager, and we had at that time had like one team that was a reporting function in Tableau. So I came in as kind of the more Tableau expert, having had some experience in it and in community building. So I was there to manage 2 business areas reporting needs, so turning some reports from Looker into Tableau and providing inherently alongside that, providing the templates and authoring guides and best practices as part of our kind of community. The community did not really exist. I helped set that up. So we have a Slack community. We're now expanding this beyond Tableau, but at the time it was to try and identify Tableau champions, basically provide that channel on Slack that people can ask questions for. But also we have developed a Google site, which is now being developed even further, but basically it had all the answers on it. It has all the answers on it, all the information they need to get a license or even just to log in, what user types will mean, what are the glossary of terms, what our best practices and documents are. So through my development of the reports with actual users, I then understood what they needed to help build that into our best practices. And then through that, just really kind of preferred that training program. I built a training program for financial services, one of the business areas I was working with, and just really enjoyed actually getting hands-on with teaching. So through that and through my community work, I then kind of convinced my management that there needed to be this Tableau enablement role because it was bigger than what I was doing and the impact was bigger. And then through that, it just grew and grew. We launched a data fluency program a couple of years ago, and then launched our specific Tableau training a year ago, which is very specific. It's all in-house, pick and mix kind of style. And yeah, now I get to do that for all of our other platforms and softer skills. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's awesome. It sounds like, I mean, and you make it sound so simple too. And so like, like boom, boom, boom. But I can imagine as anyone who has been in a role like this or does enablement things, whether it's kind of like a side desk role, part-time thing, unofficial sort of thing, or in an official capacity, just growing that organically, that kind of journey. But I think it's really cool. I always love when people kind of start at that level too and kind of build that path and help build those structures and partner with other people in the organization. And I also think that it's awesome that you work in an organization that does allow for that freedom, that does allow that expansion, because that's not always a given. It can be a battle to get that in place and to make people see the value of that. So
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been very lucky in that I have been able to focus on things I've enjoyed doing, and I do think that's important. So I've been able to run community events where we look at our different quantified self data, so Netflix data or Spotify data, and really bring that to life for people. And also then be able to develop some more of the training elements. But even last year, going back to some of the marketing stuff, we did launches in person. So I've been able to develop skills that I wouldn't have had otherwise, just as a normal analyst, learning how to launch a product and design marketing materials and branding, and it's been really good fun.
Yeah, on that, I think that you present some of this material at the Data from Europe. I had the chance to attend your presentation, and yeah, I really love it. And it's true that you integrate a lot of the branding with all this imagery and everything. And I think it's fantastic. But I think that you mentioned during your training that's not something that someone on his first year can do. Maybe maybe you do like the training and then you refine until adding the branding. I don't know if you can really comment on that.
Yeah, I can. So I think I'm lucky in that I have an art background. I think before going to uni, I was 50-50 split between going down art or geography. So I've not always come from the more technical STEM backgrounds, but through geography, I did physical geography and learned statistics and just loved it. So that's why I went into data. But that design element and the artistic side is also partly what drew me to Tableau in the first place, because of the crazy stuff you can do. I know, Annabelle, you've been doing a lot of the art stuff recently with Tableau, which is really awesome. And I think that has helped me develop that element of branding. So if I can share my screen, I can use the tech to do so. Here we go. This is some of the stuff that we've done. So hopefully you can see just that screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this is our Tableau mission. So we decided with our data fluency, we wanted to have a sub-brand, and we decided on a space theme. So we have really bought into this, and I think it's really helpful with our story that we tell, because it means that we can link things up along that journey. So we have various headers and various different collectibles that we use and have developed. So we've only developed this kind of like informally. So I love doing this via like PowerPoint or Google Slides, or I discovered last year Google Drawings, which is pretty cool because you can export it with a transparent background. So none of it's that high tech. Like I think we're slowly this year going to start moving into Adobe and various other kind of paid for products, but we use Google at done this. So I just kind of leveraged what we have and the various icons you can get from templates. So that's kind of how we went together with this. So we've got that across our communications, it's across our branding. Our training program talks about space, and it's like got a few different Star Wars elements in there, which is good fun. It's good or bad. It's a mixed reception for that one, but in general, it's been quite fun. So along with that, we have the design that I wanted to do for DataFam. So for me, I was really nervous about delivering this talk, and I just want my main biggest thing is that I wanted people to listen and pay attention to the whole thing. So I thought, okay, for enablement to properly work, including enablement of a talk, you've got to kind of have a story that keeps people engaged throughout. So I thought, why don't I turn my talk into a game walkthrough to really kind of highlight and exemplify the gamification element that we often pull on as enablement workers. So I turned it into a game. So I had it that you could select your different players, which are our different user groups, our user personas. So we have insight consumer, data consumer, and then data analyst. These have developed as well since I've done this, but it's kind of like played through and you could select on the carousel what one you wanted. I then created a map. So again, all of this is just using icons in slides. And like we had them so that it moves along and animations. It's all in slides. And it was really good fun. And I think it tied the talk together. I went kind of all in on it as well and pretended that my colleague and I, Sophie, we were crew members on the Starship. So we were very cheesy with it, which hopefully will go down well when I repeat it in a couple of weeks at Tablet Conference. But we did the whole like signing of the exits and made a few jokes along the way. And we had it so that you could go through the different levels, almost like a game walkthrough, literally, and kind of shows through different elements of our proficiency and how that all went together. So yeah, that's kind of how that developed. It was fun. It was also helpful as it relaxed me into the talk as well, and it was really good fun actually.
I feel like that's so crucial. You know, I feel like in the data visualization and the visual analytics sphere, we talk a lot about like visual best practices, and sometimes we think that applies only to the dashboard, right? But in reality, and again, as you know, as someone who's doing this marketing stuff, just all the things that surround it and the frameworks that you do, the frameworks that you design, even something as simple as, I know Annabelle and I have talked about this, like a branded landing page where resources live, or again, a PowerPoint to help visualize what that journey looks for. People are inherently visual, and if you include that all as just text, it's not going to resonate as well. And if you certainly commit to the bit and go like full, Oscar performance, I love that. People remember that. Like at the end of the day, people remember that. And can it be cheesy and whatever? Yeah, but I mean, it should be fun. But so kudos to you. I was really impressed. My one follow-up question with that is how many requests for stickers have you gotten since creating those resources?
Yeah, quite a few. So we had quite a lot of stickers. So we have Tableau mission stickers, and we got stickers that you could earn depending on what journey you went through and what you'd completed training wise. And at the conference, I did hand out a load of the Tableau mission stickers. I haven't actually had any follow-ups from the conference, but people at work absolutely love the stickers. We stick them over the laptops and on various bits and pieces. And people do request them, and people talk about it, which is good fun. And they recognize it. And again, that's all down to the brand, and they recognize that it's our internal Tableau training, and they can get involved with it, which is good fun.
I love that.
The session was fantastic. If you have any doubt about that, the session was fantastic. I still remember.
Things you do for data and Tableau.
I really love that. So we do have there's a question in the chat that I'll kind of run through real quick. We'll see if we tie it to what you're talking about here. Someone had asked, could you go deeper into the data fluency component of that? So I suppose when you're looking at like those different user personas, what does that mean whenever we're talking about how do we get different people, especially like non-technical users, fluent in data, adapted, plugged in, speaking their language? And they're just kind of asking how you brought that shift into the organization.
Yeah, so I think that shift is really important. obviously, and it's really hard, I think, and it takes so much longer than you might think. But I think for us, it's about our users' needs and keeping that first and foremost at the front of our minds. So we have many different user types, and I think there I showed 3, but actually we've developed this now into I think about 8. But we have included this out to our people in the retail stores. So often we get stuck in head office thinking about what our head office users need because they're the ones that are more technologically skilled in using data and accessing it, and they typically use a laptop. Whereas actually the predominant workforce that we have are in store. So we have, in total, I think there's about 75,000 of people at John Lewis Partnership, of which I think 15,000 are in head office or on a laptop-based role. So it's really interesting, actually, that the majority of our users are on the shop floor. So this means we've got provisioning just for them. So they need to get data flow in terms of understanding what the report says and how that metric or performance optic actually impacts their day-to-day life. So it's going in with that fluency level of translating the story of what this number actually means to them and how they can actually impact the data as well in various different ways in the store, like availability of stock. So that's really interesting on that level. But then through that, we've built stories and built user journeys on different user types. So, for example, on that screen I showed before, we had insight consumer, data consumer, and data analyst. So these mean different things. And at the time, they tied back to Tableau, but we've now expanded them to our full data stack. So an insight consumer is basically anyone that consumes the insight that we provide to them. And we can get onto self-service in a second. But basically, we provide reports, insight, data products to our users, and they are able, through being trained up, to consume that information and then apply it to their role. The next level up is then how they can take data products like data sources or even workbooks that we provide to them, consume that, and then actually author some stuff off the back of it. So that would be Explorer in Tableau. Would then be able to go on and edit a workbook to ask that secondary question that the report might not answer. We then have that third layer, which is that data analyst, which I think we've now called data author. But basically, they are able to connect to some source tables, connect to new Google Sheets, and create those data products themselves as a data source, which then, to be provisioned, would go through our governance system. But we then have actually decided to build way more layers onto that. So I think our next layer up is more technical with Snowflake and looks at how they can consume and write code themselves. So far, it's been non-coded. We then have all of our kind of developer user personas, which are to do more technical stuff like coding or using more developed model MLOps, like machine learning language, and that kind of more technical stuff that we wouldn't expect the general day-to-day user to have, even all the way through to like more of the AI developer products, as AI is such a hot topic. So that's kind of how we approach provisioning different things for different users.
Okay, that's fascinating. I mean, I love that. It's very well thought out too, just to think through holistically what each of those users' functions are and to separate it. Because I know there can be a lot of crossover sometimes, especially when that structure isn't defined and you have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So I think it's awesome that you all kind of have those delineations for those different people and set them up accordingly.
Yeah, it's been a massive undertaking as a whole operational model, and we use Miro at the partnership as well, and that's such a cool tool. But I don't know if you've ever used it, but you can visualize big, giant webs of how it all interconnects. So it's been a real mammoth effort from the team to look at the operating model, to look at how licenses applies across all of these, to how the governance works, to what access needs to be done, to what processes need to be in place to get the access and the different requests to get the access and all of those different layers. And then we're now coming in as enablement to actually go, okay, great, let's package this up as a toolkit and provide, because we're a John Lewis and Waitrose, I equate this to kind of like a shopping basket. And you take all the things that you need that's applicable to your role, and you can almost pick up like one of those ingredient ready meal kit bags that has like all the different things in it. And you can then go take that and do what you need to.
That's great. We love a good metaphor. We do have a follow-up question. And I think this kind of pertains to a little bit of what you were talking about, especially when we're talking the difference between people who are building reports and then the more technical Snowflake people who might be working with more like data engineering or whatever it may be. But Sharmila in the chat was asking, how did you set up data sources for users to access when building their dashboards? She heard you mention Snowflake, and she was wondering, do users connect to Snowflake views/tables, or do you have published data sources in Tableau? I suppose, how do you set up those data sources for those people for, I guess, which would enable self-service to a degree, right?
Yeah. So we have two kind of methods for doing this in the partnership. So we very much advocate self-service. So we have two ways of doing this. We have stuff that's provisioned to them and stuff that they can self-serve from more technically directly. So we've branded this kind of like the Netflix of Insight and the TikTok of Insight. So we have certified Tableau data sources and data products like workbooks that we have gone through the big certification process, and these are trusted, documented, traceable, secure, defined, really easy to use, and it has all the collateral to use it, like it's in the template, and it's got all of the videos on how to use it. They are there for people to use them if they need to. So this is either picking up that published data source and running with it and using web edit in Tableau Cloud, and running new workbooks off that, or even editing the workbooks themselves if they know how. They can't save over stuff that's all sorted in our live environment, but they can have a play in their own kind of personal area. On the other side, with the stuff that do more traditional self-serve, our kind of TikTok stuff, we then provision them to connect to create their own Tableau data sources. So they can connect to provisioned ones. I think it's coming this year in a release note that you can finally do relationships with provisioned data sources, but that'll be so good when that comes in. But they can create new ones using either Tableau Prep to connect to that and add more data sources in, or they can connect to Google Sheets and build new data sources from that, or even connect through to Snowflake and connect to our consume layer of Snowflake and pick tables out of that using either just the Tableau interface, ideally not custom SQL, or even that extra layer further and going and writing some code in Snowflake and kind of setting up tables that way. So it's a variety of different ways, depending on what the user can do, what they need to do, and how many, like what the value of that is. So if it's a big case where someone's writing tables or writing code and it's going to be useful for many people, we would talk to our kind of teams that sit on the engineering side and get them to productionize something.
Awesome. That's really great. Again, another well thought out thing contingent upon, your different users and allowing for multiple streams of access. So I think that's great. That's fascinating. It's not just one way. So
yeah, and I think we've built it quite transparently so that it's an inspirational journey as well. So as a user, you can just go in and do what you need to do your job. But if you wanted to be interested in learning more or wanted to move up and up that kind of scale of skills, you can do that as well.
Awesome. I'm curious too. So in addition to the John Lewis stuff, I know that you and Annabelle in particularly have a lot of overlap with Data and Women, but you also do data fam stuff, which is again the topic of what you had presented on as well. I would love to hear just how you two met. I think that's like very interesting and how you came into interaction, and then essentially kind of what you're doing in each of those communities, whether it's Data Fam like you had just presented, and then of course Data+Women, which is another large and fantastic organization. But yeah, let's start with the meat story, the meat cute story with Annabelle and Ellie.
So I've been running Data+Women London for about 5 years now, and that was just before COVID hit. I've been to a few events, loved it, wanted to get more involved in the London ones, so then signed up. And when COVID hit, we moved to virtual. So I didn't actually run an in-person one until a couple of years ago. We did loads of stuff virtually, and then through Tableau and through the network of Data+Women, different ones, we then decided to collaborate and do a joint virtual Christmas one in the December. So through the planning of that is how I met Annabelle, which was really good fun. And then I think it was that year or the following year or two, you did a talk at, I think, Tableau conference and recorded, maybe it was 2021 maybe when it was all virtual. You got different people to do different bits from Data+Women and record videos for that, which was fun. So yeah, a few years now.
Exactly. On this Data+Women Christmas special event, we used to have games and even like make recipe of chocolate, hot chocolate live. That was very fun. Very dangerous for the computer, but very fun for us.
Yeah, it was good.
And Ellie, I mean, I have my own thinking about that, but I think that these Data+Women events are quite beneficial now for you in your role or how to enable more people.
Yeah, definitely. So I really love it, and I think that it's personally really helpful for me to understand how people actually use data in different organizations, because you can get very stuck into not quite an echo chamber, but you can get limited with just how it's applicable to your company or your particular use of data. And actually bringing people together in a space where they can talk about different things, talk about different approaches, it just highlights the fact that everyone has a unique use of data and a unique journey through how they then go and apply it. And I think for me that's really great to highlight and understand, different people's views so that you can then go and apply that back to what you do and tailor what you need to do and your enablement efforts, which is really awesome. And I think for me, it's about creating that inclusive space and in different accessible ways as well. And really just getting people talking about data and sharing, because like it's that case, and I think it's the one of the taglines of Tableau, isn't it? That data is only useful if it's being used or shared or something like that. And I think sharing what you're doing and helping others learn and be inspired is part of it and part of enablement. And actually, I learn loads. So I try and go to as much conferences as I can to learn from other people. So to be able to create a space where people can do that as well is really important.
I like when people say, "Oh, thank you, Annabelle, for harassing me to become a speaker."
Yeah, prodding and poking. Well, it's good for you. You should try it.
Exactly. I always say, "Yeah, it's good. You will see. You will be fantastic," and they always are. So, yeah. So on the Data+Women, Garrett, the men are welcome. They cannot.
Yes.
That's it. That's a rule.
Yes.
Come and welcome to join. And for everyone via TC, we will have a Data+Women meetup, so you can also come and join and see what is it.
Yeah, and I remember that from last year of being a thing, because I know that is something we had worked on together. And I think if I remember right, I ran the registration for that, and then I would kind of go and make sure some stuff. But I really enjoyed seeing that, and I loved seeing that platform for women to connect and to present, about things that affect them and how to kind of, again, it's kind of stuff like this as well, of like how to refine your voice and how to share it out there and how to connect with other people and learn from people in the community, to not only just share your ideas but to learn from others and to get connected, because again, those connections are force multipliers, both in building your own enablement courses and enablement plans, but as well as you just never know down the line, 4 or 5 years from now, if you're going to be in another role and what those connections might mean for you if you are searching for another thing or you are looking for a shift or whatever it is. So I really enjoyed kind of seeing it play out, because that was my first in-person Data+Women event that I had seen. But like you said, it's happening again at TC, and I know it's a very popular event. It's very fun. So anyone who is going, you're in for a treat. And then I think if I remember right, people can sign up, and it's on the wait list now, because again, it's in such demand.
We have two events. We have a Data+Women pre-game, which is an apéro before the conference, and we have a Data+Women meetup, which is like at just after the keynote, if I remember correctly, on the Tuesday. Which is like a meetup, an informal meetup where people can just chat. So we have two events.
I'm curious too, because obviously there's like in-person events and there's virtual events, but can both of you speak to, in terms of Data+Women and even Data Fam, these events and community, how do people get plugged in? Let's say there's not an in-person event or a thing for a month or whatever. What's kind of the asynchronous? How do you get involved? How do you get plugged in? Who do you connect with? Those sorts of things, part of that community that people can start tapping into.
I think for me, I think the connection through as part of the Tableau user group's sphere and the data fam, I think that's really powerful, because there's loads of stuff going on. So you can kind of cross promote each other's stuff. Like there's the London tug that happens kind of on a frequency as well, and there's tons of stuff virtually, like the analytics user group, and loads of stuff to get involved with. So I feel like there's almost too much to a certain extent, because there's so much you could get involved with. So I think LinkedIn is probably like the most used valuable thing in the user group network and connecting into that data fam, because there's so much promotion on there of great content, of great user groups, and then there's also then the write-ups. So to make it more accessible as well, I try and write up the Data+Women London events, which are hybrid anyway, but I try and, where I can, record it and share it. And then I've also got a blog where I kind of do a more in-depth stuff on that as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Annabelle, any other tips from you for kind of plugging into the community?
No, I mean, I started the analytic tug and the Data+Women Zurich virtual because there were nothing around where I live, because I was just jealous from the Data+Women London group. That's a true story. But yes, I think it's important if you can meet in person, it's fantastic. If not, just create your own group or join like a virtual group. It's also good.
It's also a fun learning, I think, on how to run the different styles of events. So running it from virtual is a very, very different game to running it in person. I think even hybrid is another skill to have. But like you just got to think about your audience. And that's the really fun challenge I found being a co-lead. Is thinking of different games to play online or different games to play in person. And just you've really got to think about your audience, which is a good skill to have in any data enablement.
I'm curious, Ellie, as well. Tying it back to John Lewis, running events, getting engaged, understanding users. How have you taken maybe some of those lessons that probably you've learned largely from the Tableau community and kind of applied them at John Lewis in creating enablement pathways and understanding users there? I mean, what are some things that you have learned and that you've applied?
Oh, there's loads, so much. So
Uh-huh.
in part of the data fan community, there's loads of different initiatives for using Tableau. And part of that you can apply to just general storytelling. But for example, I need to run them again this year, but run an initiative which I've called mini visitathons. So it's kind of where you go in and you provide them with a data set, and it's a non-business, specifically non-business data set, which is kind of what the community is anyway, because then it's fun to share on Tableau Public. But it's a way of approaching data storytelling, of approaching data sets and working out how to break it down. So I'm a big, big fan of quantified self, and I look at my Strava data, my Netflix data, Spotify data, any kind of data about myself I can get my hands on. I then love finding the stories because it's so personal to you that actually only you can see the story. So, for example, these things up here in the background, they are
Yeah, I
actually
was
my
wondering.
Strava data from a couple of years. I
Oh,
entered it
cool.
into the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition. It's a piece of art. But it's good fun, and you can therefore I know exactly what those colours mean and where the like highlights are on my year, but no one else does, which is really cool.
Hmm.
So I then took that kind of initiative of understanding storytelling and kind of Make of a Monday style, which is one of the data initiatives, into work. So I would host these events at work that had a pre-session to be more technical. So here's how you extract your data from Netflix, for example. Here's how you join it on for more context data, like ratings of your TV shows, more colourful context. And then we would spend like an hour and a half together as an event, and again, hybrid event, where I would go through a specific theme about best practice. So that's stuff like what colours to use when, and when to limit them, what charts to use, but even just how to approach it, a data set analysis like 5 Ws and why, where, what, etc. And then we'd spend an hour independently visiting together, and then come back and share what you've learned or where you've got up to, and there's very much work in progress to hopefully promote later.
Yeah.
So that's one of the initiatives I've learned from the data farm and brought into work. But there's also, I've taken a visualization and we've dissected it and then rebuilt it in a more traditional kind of Make of the Monday style and ways of working style, which is good fun. But I think as well, we ran a year and a half ago now, we had a big event called the Inspiration Day, which Tableau kind of helped us with. But as part of that, I ran a championship, which was a data competition. So we had 3 different data sets, which were around kind of pollution and the carbon cycle and kind of making it kind of tie back to our ethics and sustainability. So we had a data set on emissions across Europe. We had a data set that was internal on our Waitrose emissions, which was a very kind of the first look at that. Or they could go and, if they were technical, go and find their own data set using GitHub or various different data source areas. And that was really cool because the winners of that, the 3 winners, presented at the day. So it was, I learned again using some of my skills from outside in the data farm. I hosted that and presented that and kind of helped them with their kind of storytelling on stage. So taking it from the technical analysis through to that storytelling and presenting, and ran pre-sessions with them, which was awesome. And I think the winner actually was a tool that's really annoying. It can't be on Tableau Public, but it was a tool in Tableau that looked at emissions data, and you could put in your membership number, and it would tell you kind of where you should maybe buy different products because the process of getting it in was too carbon loading. So it was a really cool tool. But actually, one of the finalists and this is pretty cool, only picked up Tableau 3 weeks before entering.
Wow.
So it's fun to see the progression within that as well. So yeah, many different ways to apply the data front stuff to work.
That's cool. That's a very cool success story, I would say. Have you encountered people reluctant internally to play by usually a data farm activity that will be fun outside, but internally say, no, because that happened to me, that's why.
Yeah, it's a really hard one because often community is side of desk and these initiatives actually take quite a lot of work. And to have people turn up is great. To have them turn up and be interactive and actually like participating is another level as well. So yeah, it's a real mix and there's definitely reluctance there. I think as long as there's a willingness to learn and talk to them and get feedback on how they would want to learn or how they'd want to interact. And again, it's using different types of data. And so maybe the Netflix didn't really appeal to them because they didn't watch it, didn't have an account. We did provide like a sample data set. I made my team anonymize their data and sacrifice their data for it. But it's about finding that hook for them and finding that relevancy, I think, is the big thing. And that even applies to kind of more standard learning. We've got our Tableau programs, but often, we've made it on a John Lewis Superstore kind of style data set. But actually, what's really helped those reluctant people is going in as a more kind of targeted enablement effort and actually taking a subset of their actual business data, using it for their role and how they can actively use it, rather than kind of making it more generic or more fun in the business sense, because not everyone sees the fun of Tableau and using data analytics, and that's okay. For most, it's just a tool to do their job. But yeah, that balance is a fun one to navigate.
Well, someone had actually just asked essentially the question that Annabelle had asked. Do you find it easy? And this might be maybe this is a slightly different shade too, because the question was, do you find it easy to get people to attend data literacy programs? Which, I imagine that there are a lot of people who, what did I say? This is going to sound worse than it is. They think they know how data works, and then you kind of get to the education process, and maybe there's a fundamental misunderstanding or something to learn, or maybe, as you had said, maybe they don't have that willingness to learn, so they're not open to, how do you meet that resistance and make inroads to getting those people involved?
Yeah, of course. And I think this ties into that whole data culture piece as well. So first up with the programs. So we constantly have feedback loops and we iterate on our programs. So the one that was released a couple of years ago, it is too long and it's almost too comprehensive with what we wanted it to do. So we're actually in the next kind of quarter reassessing that, and we've had feedback that it's too long and that those that want to learn are put off by the time that it takes. I think it's about 8 hours long and it needs to be like an hour, if not less. So we are listening and feeding back on that. But I think also a couple of things on getting them engaged in the first place. We have gamified everything. So you can earn badges. We have a dashboard where you can track your progress. We've now started automating our journeys to get people to use it using Salesforce Marketing Cloud, where we've got that some more on the marketing angle of having automatic things of, you've not looked at your training in 30 days, do you want to have a go at this again? And that kind of thing, or celebrating their success is the big one as well. So celebrating when they've completed a program or when they've met like the different levels. So we've got with our astronaut theme, you've got to be a data cadet, then you're a 1-star mission crew, then you're kind of on various different kind of astronaut levels. And kind of gamifying it and tying that back into the story is helpful. We're going to really develop this year through our new kind of portal site and have it that there's going to be different missions across different platforms. So we're going to have some Snowflake mission stuff. There's going to be different badges that you can earn by doing various bits like navigating a different website or learning what this definition is over here and stuff like that. So that's really cool. And we're hoping that will get people engaged. But it's also that leadership buy-in piece. So it's getting leadership to understand that their team need to prioritize and put time aside for this, for the long-term health of their team. And that is really tricky and ongoing. But I think for data fluency, it's giving up that time to understand it as a team and understand how it's relevant to you, rather than thinking you might just know it because you did stats at university or like you've done some maths courses. It's actually then, okay, how can we take that and adapt it within a team setting to stuff that actually matters to them. So, for example, with our finance team, we went in and did a whole kind of, we called them a roadshow, but we took people from our data platform team, our analytics team, and our Tableau team, and kind of had a big roadshow where we got different use cases and basically kind of inspired them that it was relevant to the training, it was relevant to them, it was relevant to their journey, they could save loads of time, they could automate stuff if they understood it better, and it would have this knock-on impact of, if you understood what this number over here meant, you could then translate it through to business value. And often putting that business value is a helpful one to get people engaged.
Very cool. These are some quick questions that kind of came in a little earlier, and I think it pertains to self-service and resource creation and a lot of what you're talking about. But these two questions they're kind of similar, so we can probably answer them at the same time. But one had asked, how do you monitor and catalog your various assets created by consumers of self-service? Do you have a process or a check post that goes on? Which sounds like it kind of comes back into the maybe even the governance side of self-service, like the flip side. And then someone also had asked, how do you keep training and enablement documents up to date with Tableau upgrades? So essentially asset creation, how do you centralize it, how do you stay current, how does that work?
Yeah, so on your first one about monitoring, I think it was about monitoring our progress. So we have various dashboards and assets management programs. So we have all of our enablement work, so all of our on-demand proficiency programs are on a program called Workday. We then extract the data and we can look at exactly who's doing what and also who's uploading what. And we use a lot of the Tableau, because we're on Tableau Cloud, we get a lot of the Tableau management data sources. And as an admin, you can see a lot of the metadata from Tableau. So there is the admin insights data source, which shows you events data and user data. We've also then linked this to our Workday data, so we can see which business areas are doing what. So that's one way of managing kind of who are our star uploaders, who's actually using the platform, who's viewing, what content is being viewed and by who, and how effective that is. But in terms of managing the stuff and the content on there, we have different project setups. So we have our Tableau Cloud is set up by business area. So there's a finance, there's financial services, there's Domino's, Waitrose, trading, etc. And in each of those folders, projects, we have a sandbox, a dev, and a live, or a test and a live. So everything in the sandbox area, anyone can, if they have a license to publish, can publish into that particular sandbox. That is not managed by us centrally, that is managed by the business area. And we have identified a project leader per business area, and it's taken a lot of work to get here, but they basically are responsible for that sandbox. If they want subfolders, they can have subfolders, but basically it's just content in there. Anything that again gets put through to the kind of test release environment and then through to our live folder, that's all gone through our governance and our central governance system. So once it's in live, it's trusted, it's got that green tick on the certification level of the data source. We have watermarks for our various templates, so you know that it's been kind of certified and trusted. So we centrally and the engineering team look after the maintenance and support if it breaks for anything in the live environment. But we have been very clear through our Google Sites and through any documentation we have around this that anything in the sandbox is the owner's responsibility. And that's an interesting journey, an interesting question in itself. That's kind of how we manage kind of content creation. We also have various utilization dashboards to help with that management for that project leader when we support them very much. In terms of our programs and staying current, we just constantly feedback and iterate. So we did a whole launch last year before kind of AI really got into all of our stuff. So we're now having to go back and redo them. But the way that we set them up is that we have various programs and courses underneath them. And that means we can just add a course or we can add various programs. And the way that we've done it is to be able to have those toolkits and have users be able to pick and mix what they need anyway that's applicable to their role. So say that they need that particular thing on AI. So for example, we need to go back and add a load of Tableau agent stuff because that's what we have at John Lewis Partnership. We've just done a pilot over Christmas and we're now kind of rolling that out. But we will go back and add in those programs. And also because we're trying to now be more than just Tableau in our proficiency, we are going to have to go back and update references to different programs. So we'll just keep it updating in the way that we have set it up so that it's a really easy implementation, as much as it will be a little bit painful to go back and update things consistently. But yeah, as the data world consistently changes, and especially with AI coming in, yeah, we'll need to consistently be up to date with stuff.
Yeah. And it sounds like, again, having these delineated roles and people dedicated to enablement allows you to be able to go and update those resources and stay up to date and stay in tune with Tableau updates and of course other platform updates as well. So hopefully you have more bandwidth to be able to pay attention because again that's more of a central part of your job versus I'm doing this in the 1 hour a week, sort of capacity.
Yeah, for sure. We are still a small team. Hopefully we're going to grow this year, but we're still only a team of 4 or 5 of us, so
Mm,
lots to do.
yeah.
Ellie, at the beginning of your introduction, you mentioned that at Lewis Partnership, you start as a Tableau expert, and then your role evolved because you were capable of convincing your boss of having like an enablement practice. Can you maybe share some tips how you did this buy-in? And also, let's go along with Ari's Wong question, how the enablement initiative are then evaluated. And then you confirm that is, needed.
Yeah, so how did I prove that my role was needed? It's an interesting question. So actually, as I mentioned, I've been there for 3 years and I've kind of moved through different roles. And actually, what I didn't mention was that I, up until beginning of February, was always on a full-time contract. So I was a full-time employee of the partnership, but always on contracts, the 12-month contracts kind of thing, as and when they needed, like stepping it up. So I had the year contract, and it was always under the guise that it would kind of get extended. But actually, as of February, I've been now a permanent employee with theoretically no end date to my contract, which is amazing as part of this whole new team. So I think the way that I've personally done it is to really work closely with our Tableau central team and really work well with the team to highlight those use cases of value. And it's really hard actually because a lot of what I've done to kind of prove enablement is a lot of side of desk. So all of the work I've done with the community has never been part of my role until maybe 18 months ago. And so I pushed to do that and I pushed to have that by highlighting the number of people that came to my things, by highlighting the stuff that they were then creating off the back of it. I would consistently advertise to my leadership team that this was happening. I would send them reports, and there's a weekly note that goes out by one of our leadership team, and I do everything I can to push my team's efforts in there as little paragraphs and little ways of winning. I would also, for those people that attended the events I was running, I would make sure that their managers knew anything cool that they were creating to show that there was value. But I think to prove that kind of data and enablement specifically is worth investing in, it's a really tough one because value is actually indirect from enablement. So you can't say, oh, I was responsible for this particular monetary value that someone else has found using data. And that's you can indirectly, and so that's where this is kind of more gone to is surfacing those use cases where through hackathons, through providing data sources, through providing training for that data, you have allowed this person to either using data and uncover monetary value. So, for example, in some of our stock returns, they found that if they had some certain stock actually available to buy rather than letting it run out, you'd earn more money that way. But like some stories like that, finding and validating and signing off and getting exec sign off for those monetary values is helpful. But a lot of the cases, it's to do with more hours saved or kind of skill unlocking. So within the finance team, I think there was one use case where they were spending 40 hours a month on running a ton of tabs in Excel and running loads of macros and getting stuff ready for this report that they can now do in 2 days using Tableau. So it's highlighting that, and then you can actually convert that into an average salary per hour kind of monetary value. So I think it's about highlighting those values. But those use cases are quite hard to find. So the way that we try and do it is, as I mentioned, we've had a Netflix and a TikTok kind of way of looking at insight. We run 2 surveys that go out, one for any kind of value that someone who's using our product might have, and we go in and ask them questions if they answer that. But also then with the TikTok one, it is generally more like hours saved and how we can kind of attribute that. And through all of our tracking of our success measures, we know where in the business people are using our products, where they're using our platforms, and we can just go and talk to them and find out kind of what they're doing and how that kind of works that way. So yeah, a lot of our adoption and measuring success dashboards and metrics, which we're now kind of expanding out to other platforms, is really key. Because also it's not just about increasing active number users, It's also about increasing the stickiness score, so the number of people that are coming back to stuff again and again and using it on a regular cadence. So not just logging in to view a new report, they're logging in weekly to see their numbers on a Monday morning, that kind of thing, and those kind of use cases.
That's awesome. I think that's a fantastic way to measure that value. Again, tapping into those feedback loops, surveys, making it relevant. And this is not that this is a thing that we had heard in our past episode. The hours saved is a really impactful metric because again, it can be even in marketing, we struggle with this on the marketing front. Creating the perfect attribution model is like the golden goose of marketing, right? It's just like it's almost impossible to do, but you're still going to try doing it. And at the end of the day, it's very difficult to find an exact, like this specific action equaled $500 or whatever, you know. So framing it in hours saved is really, really, really a smart strategy. I'm curious too, you know, what I love about this presentation so far is it really is a balance of self-service and governance. This, you know, enabling people, but also making sure that there are standards in place. I'm curious now, having done this for a few years, specifically at John Lewis, what does self-service mean to you and your users now? I mean, in its simplest form, how would you define self-service? What does that mean for the average John Lewis user to have self-service analytics at their tips and the impact it might have?
So I think for me and for our users, I think the main thing is that they're able to access and consume the information that they need to do their job. So that means that we are providing them with insight, with data products, with reports that allow them to very, very, very easily and quickly consume that information that then goes and allows them to do their job more effectively and make better decisions
Mm.
using data that's accurate. So that's, I think, we forget because we're so like analytics based that we forget that that's actually the main use and the main purpose.
Mhm.
Because there's also that secondary layer with self-service of, okay, we've given them this first thing, but if they're not able to answer the business question, we also need to provide that self-serve of they can go and find that information themselves. They have this access to the programs to upskill if they can't, but they can basically go and access because we provided the data sources, they can go and find out that answer to their question themselves. So whether that is by us giving them the information or by giving them the tools to go and able to find that question to their answer.
Mm.
Answer the question.
Yeah. That's a great definition. That's a great reminder. You can certainly go down so far down the rabbit hole that you can forget. Oh, what's the basic reason we're doing this again?
Yeah, and that's where like our vision and our kind of like translating our enablement strategy up to the data strategy, up to the partnership strategy is really
Mhm.
key actually, and keeping that North Star going.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's awesome. We're at 10:58 right now, so we probably have room for like one more little tidbit. I think we did a good job of answering questions throughout, so we'll just go ahead and say the Q&A portion has completed. But I'm curious, just in terms of like next stuff. What's next for you? What's next for Data Fam or Data+Women, or even your role at John Lewis? I mean, what's on the horizon?
There's loads of really exciting stuff. So as I mentioned, I'm speaking at Tableau Conference in a couple of weeks. I'm also going to be speaking at London Summit in a few weeks after that about our best practices and our authoring guides and how we've kind of set up our templates to enable people. But yeah, I think for us at the partnership and for me, we are expanding beyond Tableau, as great as Tableau is, to all of our other platforms. And that what excites me because that will unlock Tableau as well. And it's all about that interlinking data end-to-end journey. And that's really, really cool. And that'll be really fun. And I'm looking forward to building the marketing around the user stories and user journeys. But with Data+Women, we've got 3 new co-hosts this year. And we're now theming our events. So I look after the networking events and trying to make it more accessible with tiny talks as well. But my colleague runs the non-profit section. We've got a few non-profit events. There's one happening tonight, actually. And then there is also education. And then it's a massive year for sports for women. So we should have in the back end of the year stuff around like the Rugby World Cup and other bits of, I think there's a Netball World Cup as well. So there's loads of different themes within Data+Women. It's fun to expand.
That's awesome. That's a lot of ways to interact. Annabelle, I pitched the same question to you in terms of, I know we talked about it briefly at the beginning, but whether it's Data Fam or community things at Tableau Conference or Data+Women, I mean, what's next for you in terms of what you have going on? And I know one thing that's next, but what else do you have?
So yes, next for me is like going at the Tableau conference and try to steal some sticker from Ellie. Because now that I know that she has stickers, I want one for my computer. No, like the same, the Data+Women, we have this year, the Data+Women Zurich chapter, we are focused in data art. So we will have like different speakers through the year who are specialized in data art and do something different than the business dashboard that we also love, but it's cool to sometimes have your mind blown away with a different way of thinking. I think it's quite cool.
Those are all great things. It's an exciting time. This is the Super Bowl, the World Cup of data, coming up in 2 weeks. But yeah, I'll just put a pitch out there too. I think on Thursday at 9 a.m. is Annabelle and I's enablement talk, where we'll be talking a lot about the wonderful resources that Annabelle's created, but also insights we've pulled from data forums conversations like this with Ellie. So we definitely encourage people to attend those, and Ellie's talk as well. And yeah, to anyone attending, have fun. And if you're not attending, tune in virtually, because there's still a lot of value to be had from watching those virtual sessions and learning. Don't miss that opportunity, especially when it's free. So well, cool. Well, any final words, any sign off? I mean, Ellie, I just want to thank you so much for being here and for talking. All of this was wonderful. And as usual, my only regret is that we don't have more time.
No, just thank you so much for having me along. Like it's an amazing thing you guys are doing, and it's so interesting hearing from different people about everyone's different efforts. Like I've mentioned, like it's so fun learning from other people. So and everyone does it differently. So it's good fun to learn. And yeah, just thank you for having me along. I've really enjoyed chatting about this, and I can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks.
Yes. Yep. I'm excited. I really can't wait. So thanks for joining. And to everyone out there, definitely look us up, find us at Tableau Conference. But to Annabelle and Ellie, we'll see you soon. Bye.
See you soon, Ellie. Bye.